This is another particularly interesting project. It's the Plaza Apartments. It's in San Francisco. San Francisco has a program where they're trying to get people who are formerly homeless, particularly those who have a lot of health problems, into supportive housing with some health services. San Francisco is in an interesting situation. It's a city and a county, and it runs a county hospital. And what was happening was it's a pretty serious homeless population there, and the cost to the emergency room at the hospital was astronomical. What they did was use tax credits to sort of help build this project, in addition to other city subsidies. And now this is a place that homes formerly homeless people. There's several buildings like this in the city. It's been a tremendous savings to the city in terms of saved medical costs. They are able to feed back into their housing resources. Again, for flexibility, I really want to sort of hark back to that aspect of the system. This is another interesting project. This is in out in Poway, the city. It's outside of San Diego. Not only is it beautiful, I mean, not only would you be proud to live there, and one of the quotes I have in the book was this woman saying, you know, I order a pizza and they're not afraid to deliver it to me here. You know, it's sort of, there's a pride of ownership. There's are living in a decent place that's palpable. One thing that's really cool about this one, though, is that it's got all the roofs are solar panels. This project is a net exporter of electricity back to the electrical grid. No low-income person that lives in this project pays an electrical bill, and it's an interesting example of sort of green policy sort of dovetailing with some social policy as well. Now, before I mentioned this, I thought it was important that there was that this was a policy example for other policy areas. I think the most explicit example of that is with the new markets tax credit. The new markets tax credit was modeled on the low-income housing tax credit, although it's not as deep of a subsidy as the low-income housing tax credit. And it's designed to get what they call near bankable deals into the bankable category. So just kind of give you that little bit of a shift so that you could start a small business in a place that, you know, within a low-income community where you may not have been able to get that loan as a straight market deal. This is a project built primarily with the proceeds from new markets tax credits called Market Creek Plaza. It's in San Diego. I think this one's particularly interesting. To hear the woman who sort of the driving force behind this is a moving experience, because she's about this tall, this little old lady, and this used to be an intersection that was heavily contested with a number of rival gangs. I don't know what it was called. It was called like Bloody Corner or Hamburger Hill or something like that. I mean, the police didn't go here. She marched right up in the middle of it and started looking for people. Like, are you in a gang? And he's like, yeah, I'm in a gang. So I want to talk to your boss. She talks to the leaders of all the gangs that are contested in space here and said, look, I want this to be neutral territory. What do I have to give you to get that? And they said, we want jobs for our members. She said, I'm going to give you that. So the gang members were part of the planning process here. In addition to the wider community. Now, a lot of people who live in this community are from southern Mexico, have a kind of a nostalgia for Mayan architecture. So you can see that was incorporated in. That's something that they wanted in this development. You also see there's an amphitheater here. The community wanted someplace where they could gather as a community. But this is a network that's very similar to the network that I described in the housing example. So the new markets tax credit is the driver that creates the quasi-market, but there are also community development financial institutions, CDFIs, that play a role very similar to the CDCs, and a number of other intermediary institutions that help these transactions work. Again, another network in sort of a small business area. And this network is not nearly as developed as the others, but it's getting there, and it's showing some interesting promise, and that's the charter schools. And I finally have a East Coast example. Sorry, but I didn't even notice they're all California examples, but I'm not trying to be state-centric here. Here's a KIPP Knowledge is Power program facility here, and I think it's Southeast DC. John, you probably did the loan on this. This is a project where. So if you start a charter school, you have access to the per pupil ADA funding for that pupil, but there's no money for facilities, and so it's very hard for charter schools to get over that hump and get into a building. One of the programs that's particularly interesting is the Department of Education has a credit enhancement for facilities bonds, so it's unlocking a tremendous amount of market capital to build projects like this. And what you're starting to see as the money starts flowing through that system nonprofits that just specialize in building these facilities, nonprofits that specialize just in the management of them, these other intermediary organizations, these other nodes in a new network for charter schools that are helping getting these projects done. And so what happens is, if you are a great teacher who understands your community and have a kind of a pedagogical plan in mind, you don't also have to know how to interact with the city about your water bill or to figure out what my mortgage is going to be, right? You can really focus on the things that you do best, and that's what's so amazing about a network system. So one of the things I think is sort of, I don't mean to be particularly gimmicky with that whole pre-modern, post, all that stuff. I don't mean to be really gimmicky about that, but I sometimes I think about maybe we are on the verge of an epic shift. That we really are on the verge of a new era in what I often call the postmodern welfare state. And one of the things I think is really cool about that is this one quote I end the book with, and it's basically this community development corporation executive directors, and he's in the Mississippi Delta, and he's talking about this interaction he has with this woman who's a tenant in one of his buildings, and she's sharing with him all the sort of concerns she has about her community. And he's saying how great that is. He says, because he's getting so much market intelligence, he's understanding what the problems are. He says, the last line is, yeah, we cover a lot of ground in the grocery store. And I thought, how awesome is that? You sort of at that moment can meet that woman with her concerns with the sort of the tools of global capital, national subsidy, and the universe of problem-solving ideas right there in that moment. And I think the real challenge, and I think this is what the part we really need to sort of evolve into, is that we need to build out the affordable housing community development network. I think we're close to that. I think there's some weaknesses to it. There's better coordination and reaching into new areas, but I think we're close. We need a health network and an education network and a public safety network and a green network. And when we can sort of walk into a community shoulder to shoulder with all those different networks and say, look, here's a comprehensive set of tools to the people who live there to help them solve the problems that they're experiencing, then I think we're really on the verge of really making sure that every neighborhood in this country is one that is a neighborhood of choice, opportunity, and hope. And that's the story of the book. Thank you.